morning, Alan Cadre. Shannon and I are here reporting on our Cultural Awareness Project, which took place at the BAPS Swaminarayan Mandir Temple located in Irving, Texas.
Okay, so when we first got there, we weren't really sure what to expect. We were pretty apprehensive and nervous. And we walked in, and it was really awkward when we got there. We didn't know what to do. People could tell that we were outsiders. So we just took a brochure and kind of looked at it for a while. And then this one girl, her name is Annie, she walked out and she was like, she's like, hi, because she knew that we didn't belong here. She's like, would you like a tour? And so we said yes, and one of the first things that she told us was that we needed to take off our shoes. So we went into this room where there's all these shelves and shoes, and she said just pick like a caddy and put your shoes in there because we walk around barefoot in the temple because shoes are not allowed.
Yeah, so once we took our shoes off, one of the first things she asked us was, it was actually pretty awkward. She kind of like approached us like in our personal space, and she kind of like leaned in and whispered, asking both of us if either one of us had been on our monthly cycle. And obviously we both replied no, but she said that it's actually against their religion for women to enter into their temple or have any kind of contact with their gods while they're on their period. So that was like a really awkward encounter, having, a complete stranger ask us about that. But once we did that, she kind of gave us a little summary of, everything that we were going to see while we were there. And the first thing she did was take us into the room where they had their idols, and they had one of their monks who was actually giving the adults their weekly lesson.
And when we walked in, everyone was sitting on the floor. So we walked in and we sat on the floor. It was all carpet. There were hardly any seats. They were along the line for the elderly, and they were separated, which was kind of interesting. The men were all on the left side in the front, and all the females were on the right side towards the back because they keep them separated, they said, just out of respect and to avoid any distractions. So that was pretty interesting. And as far as the rest of the temple, that was separated too. They had classes inside the building, and there was a wing for the males and there was a wing for the females, and they stayed separated. In fact, we found there was one boy, and he was actually in the female wing, and our tour guide, she kind of like scolded him and told him that he needed to get where he was supposed to be.
Right. And that's one thing that remained constant throughout everything, like Shannon said. Even after worship and everything, they usually serve dinner to everyone that comes to attend their weekly services. And even in their dining hall, the men and the women are always separated. One, to avoid distractions and out of respect, but also because they have saints who actually live in the temple. And those saints, I guess, would be the equivalent to, the monks, and they are not allowed to have any contact with women, so that's why things are always separated. So, the monks can avoid contact with the women at all times, because if they do come into contact with the women, then there's, some sort of ritual or like repentance that they're supposed to offer the gods.
And like Maria said, there was a huge dining hall where they could eat. They had a big meal every Sunday. They do that. There was kind of like, I don't know if you would call it a gift shop, more just like a shop.
Yeah, like a bookstore.
Yeah, a
almost.
bookstore basically. And they sold all different kinds of literature and even different kinds of foods. So we got to see what that was like.
Yeah, so some of the other things that we learned while we were there were that people kind of come and go. So there's not like a set schedule that every single person follows. Everything begins at about 2:30, and it could go all the way up until 7:30 if you stayed for the whole night. So once you first walk in, a lot of us are familiar with, churches and going to Sunday school. So they have like a similar curriculum and program set in place. Once again, the guys are separated and the girls are separated, but you attend those classes, and the adults are sitting in their own lecture, and then once 4:30 starts, they actually have their service, which is called darshan, and that's from about 4:30 to 7 o'clock. And during that time, people are playing instruments and worshiping through music and a series of like cultural rituals that take place.
And we got to sit in on one of their, I guess, Sunday school classes that you would call it. We joined the high school girls group, so we got to see them give presentations and sing some of their prayers, or that was kind of interesting. As far as some of the things that we observed while we were there with our senses, there was a lot of elaborate and intricate architectural structures, like there was limestone that was hand carved, and then like
they're really big on like hand carving things and having really intricate designs into their buildings. And so everywhere you look, they try to incorporate that, whether it be on the outside or the inside of their facility. Another thing that we learned while we were there was the women are not allowed to do specific things. And so many of the places that we would like turn to as we were going through the temple and, you know, looking around, there would be signs on some of the doors that led to like the altar where the gods were, and it would say no women past this point, or the hallway wherever the saints were staying in the temple, it would always have like a sign from one end to the hallway to the other end of the hallway that said no women past this point. And it's actually something that's taken very seriously. So our tour guide, Annie, or, you know, the lady that was showing us around, she wouldn't even come near that part of the hallway. So that was something that they actually take really seriously.
Their dress code, they were dressed in saris and very colorful clothing, and they had that like draped around them. I think I saw maybe like 2 men wearing jeans, but most of them were pretty dressed up in their saris and stuff. As far as smell, very strong throughout the entire temple. We could smell their food that they were preparing in the kitchen, and their body odor was different. That was something that we noticed.
One of the last things I would say that probably stood out to us the most throughout our experience here was at the very end, Annie was explaining to us that we actually had run into a guy who was actually living in the temple with his family, and it was sort of like quote unquote his job, and he lived in the temple 7 days a week, all week long, and his actual job was to cook food 3 times a day and offer it to the gods. So in the Swaminarayan religion, they actually believe that these gods are living beings, and so that it's, you know, their duty to offer them food, and they honestly believe that, you know, these gods eat the food and, you know, partake of whatever it is that's offered to them.
I think that sums it up, Belle.
Yep. I would say overall this project was really successful. It helped us become more aware of some of the things that we might run into dealing with different cultures in our own classrooms later. It could also help us understand why some of our students could be more reserved towards members of the opposite sex, and it definitely made us appreciate cultural variety a lot more.
Yeah, it opened our eyes so that we were more aware of some of the students that may be in our classrooms, and just to be sensitive to their needs and their religion.
Yeah. One major thing that I'll be taking away from this project would probably be the importance of service that the Swaminarayan
Yes.
religion puts on, the youth there. One of the things that they talked about was that it doesn't really matter what your religion is. You should always try to serve others, because one of the quotes they used was, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And so that was a really big message that I thought could relate to all religions or cultures, because, you're just serving your fellow classmates or family members or community members. So, see you later.
Bye.